Ready?
Yeah.
Ready, folks? Everybody ready? I'm Larry Leamy, president of the Mecklenburg Audubon Society. For those of you who don't know me, I got to talk this way, apparently. I'd like to welcome you to our January 2024 meeting. Want to welcome the new people that you see there listed. Do we have anybody else new here today? Just stand up and give us your name, please. Good. Good. Welcome. Welcome. Anyone else? Anybody else? I think everybody deserves a hand for bringing this food. I had about 3 helpings, I think. Angel, you want to talk about the next food we're going to need?
There's more food. That's next in February at our meeting. You got to sign up to bring us some snacks if you are so interested. So I'm going to be passing this sheet around, and name, contact info, and at least some idea of kind of the ballpark of what you're going to bring if possible. Okay, so I'm just going to send that around. That'll be for our February meeting.
Richard.
I didn't think Larry was going to call up because there it is, our field trips. Thank you, Judy, and thank you, Ron, again. You're doing the bulk of it. So that's it.
Mention about weather.
Oh, yeah. Anybody that was maybe going on the next Tuesdays, it looks like we're going to have terrible weather. And this Saturday, we have terrible weather. So those two are like, well, that one on Saturday is definitely moved to Sunday, and the one on Tuesday is likely to be moved to Thursday.
Thank you, Richard. I don't really have any announcements for tonight. Anybody else need to announce anything? The pictures, yes. The pictures.
We still have some art for sale in the room over there. The small version of the pictures are $25, and there's 2 of the same of the big ones. That's why they're kind of clipped together, because they're exactly the same. And those are $40. And I bought one last time, and it looks really good. Framed on the wall. So I recommend highly that someone buys it, because they're very nice. And I know somebody else who did, right? It was a beautiful birthday or Christmas present. So it supports the organization. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. We're going to have Curtis Smalling here next month, who, as you can see there, is the interim executive director of Audubon, North Carolina. He's going to talk to us about urban forest and birding. So please come to that meeting next month. It should be quite good. Okay, I'm going to call up Steve for a special presentation.
Thanks, Larry. Taylor Peepoff is with us here tonight, and he's been a fixture in local birding for decades. If a limpkin or a spoonbill or a western hummingbird shows up, Taylor's there. He's led bird walks and trips for Mecklenburg Audubon, frog walks for the birdhouse on the Greenway, led groups at Wings Over Water Wildlife Festival in the Outer Banks. He's hosted folks for years on Thanksgiving weekend for birding and chili on the North Carolina coast. Taylor served as president of the Carolina Bird Club and chaired the North Carolina Birds Record Committee. Taylor's also been the public face of birding in the Charlotte area. He's appeared on WFAE, Charlotte Talks, WBTV News, and for many years he wrote a popular birding column for the Charlotte Observer. Taylor also coordinates the Southern Lake Norman Christmas bird count. And on that count, last month, Taylor was on a boat on the lake when he and others saw 2 little gulls. This is the first time the species had been recorded on the lake, and the little gull was the 300th bird on Taylor's Mecklenburg County list, and he holds the record for most species seen in the county. So in recognition of his years of service to the birding community and to commemorate his 300th bird, Mecklenburg Audubon would like to present Taylor with this award. Thank you.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, that's awkward. Okay.
What?
So this is very nice. And Steve asked me to come, and I said, well, I'll be happy to, but I also want to say a few words about it. So we'll get it out of the way. 300 birds in an inland county, that's a nice number. It's a good milestone. I'm happy to be the first person to get 300 species in Mecklenburg County. But I don't think I will be the only one at 300 very long. There's some very, very good birders in Mecklenburg, and Kevin Metcalf, if you know that name, he's got 287. Jeff Lemons has 286. Judy, I think you're up there. So, I mean, this is very nice. I didn't know exactly what I was going to say, but usually when people have heartfelt things to say, they memorize. I prefer to read mine. So I thought that I would go down the list and just say spend a few minutes talking about every species. So Canada goose. Okay. But really, I did want to say a few words about, how did I get here? How did anyone get to 300 birds in Mecklenburg County? Because 20 years ago, I was talking with David Wright, and we were speculating how high could someone go, and we were thinking maybe 250 or 260, something like that. But birding has taken off nationally and in Mecklenburg County and in the state. So there are more birders out there now, and there are more eyes finding birds. And so all of a sudden, we started finding birds that, the small group 20 years ago that was birding, now it's, 10 times that number of finding rare birds. And so the numbers, everyone started, their list the county list got really high. So that's how, and it will continue to, I think. I do want to congratulate or recognize this chapter, because I couldn't have done it without Mecklenburg Audubon. In 1982, I decided I wanted to do the Christmas count in Charlotte. So I looked up who was compiling the Christmas count and a phone number, and it was Joe Norwood, who said, yes, you're welcome to participate. I'm going to put you with David Wright. And met David Wright that day, and we went out, and he showed me a lark sparrow, which is a life bird for me, on the very first time I went out with him. And we ended up birding a lot, and he had a very good county list. And if he was still with us, I'm sure he would be up probably about 310, I've speculated. So, and remained active, I think he would be 310. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. But this is a special group because you have Mecklenburg Audubon has supported several Christmas counts, and in the Lake Norman count that I started 30 some years ago has meant a lot to me for that support. So yeah, so this is a very sharing group. You don't always find that when you get into birding. It can get a little cliquey and it gets competitive, and people don't want some people to see the birds because you know they see them, they don't want you to see them because they're doing a list. I've never encountered that in Mecklenburg County. Everyone wants everyone to see the birds. And that is what I want to relate my impression of this group and why I'm so grateful to have spent decades, involved. So thank you very much. That's what I was going to say.
Now we get to your slides. Judy's going to be calling up people.
We have a number of folks who are sharing their photos. We're going to go in alphabetical order by the title, their first names. There are several who now couldn't make it because of illness. So I'm going to stand in for them. They've given me some cliff notes. And I guess that's the best way to just get started with that. And Betty Thomas, wrong way. Betty Thomas is our first person. Oh, that's
You can control it.
okay. That's great. Here we got sound going good here. Well, this is appropriate that I come after Taylor because Taylor was one of the first people that got me interested in birding. Because I found this bird and I couldn't identify it. And so I contacted him and I sent it to him and he said, oh, Eastern Phoebe. I didn't even know what an Eastern Phoebe was back then. That was the first time, and he's been helping me figure them out ever since. So this is a good tribute to Taylor tonight. I really only started birding in March of 2020. So a lot of birds are new to me. So it's kind of, I don't even have to go that far to find new birds to photograph. And I enjoyed taking pictures. In fact, what happened was with COVID, I realized I could be isolated in my home for a long time. So I set up my backyard with bird houses, bird feeders, and a bird bath, and I could shoot outside of my office window. So that's how it started. And here's where I am today. So anyway, I had to choose 6 pictures. That was almost impossible, Judy, of all the pictures I had this year. But I hope you enjoy these because I had a good time shooting them. Again, this is outside my office window with the hummingbirds. And this one I like particularly because there's hummingbirds sitting there in the rain and you can see the raindrops on the top of the bird. It's pretty cool. And I love having the hummingbirds when they're in season. And some birds, like this one in Freedom Park, who's often there, just stand there and pose for you. You can't ask for an easier photograph to take, but they're just absolutely beautiful birds, the great blue heron. And then the green heron And I just got this at Rankin Lake. I was walking around the lake and thought that was a nice shot. And this is one of my favorite birds because they look so different from one moment to another with the long neck. At first, I didn't even realize that they were different birds. Although they weren't different birds, it was the same one. So that was cool. Okay. No? There we go. All right. Again, to the backyard. The red-shouldered hawk. I know what he's trying to scare up in the grass there, but he had a good time. I had a good time taking that photograph. The red-shouldered hawk. I could have gotten 6 pictures just out of what I've taken in the last month of the Baltimore Orioles. The first one I saw was a male that came through September 5th this year. They were there periodically. I'd see one and I'd see one. And then I didn't see for a while. And I thought, I'm not going to get Orioles this year for this winter. And then mid-December, I get them in 4s and 5s. So it'd be a male and 4 females or 4 females, a lot of females right now. So I can't tell the males apart yet. I can tell the females if I take pictures of them and look in comparison. That's that's how I figure them out. But because they do look can look different from each other. The males, I haven't quite figured out the differences in it, but that's sure.
What are they attracted to? Because
Grape jelly. The cheaper, the better.
I've never seen it.
Promote. He said, I hear that sometimes they like dried mealworms, but I put dried mealworms out. But the grape jelly they like, and so does the yellow rump warbler. Exactly, the yellow rump warbler.
Usually big older trees. If you live in an area that doesn't have big trees or a lot of open, if you have a lot of open spaces, you may not get them as much. But I've noticed our biggest concentrations are actually closer to the center part of the city.
I live really close to Freedom Park, right on the edge of Freedom Park, with yes, right, exactly. And the big oak trees along there, they also like established landscaping. Yeah. So if you've got bushes, they like to come up under my window has some boxwoods under it that I keep cut back, and I'll see the boxwood. I'll be sitting at my desk and start see the boxwoods kind of moving, and I know that it's an oriole coming up to jump up, pop up, and jump up to the feeder. But yeah, for those 2 things, the trees and the landscaping. But they're really fun to see. Right now, if I have to get work done in my office, I have to take the shade and put it down. They're too distracting. It's just so much fun to watch. And the black and white, I love this picture. This is the only one that's not actually local. I went on the Outer Banks trip last year, and I took off and went up to Duck, and I was walking on the boardwalk at Duck, and there's a black and white warbler just right there on the railing. I mean, I'm trying to get him out of the trees, and here it is just right there, sitting there letting me take his picture. But I thought I really liked that photograph. Okay. Thank you.
Another point about the oriole, and I think Taylor can verify, collaborate with me. When I first started in the 80s birding in the area, we hardly ever had Baltimore Orioles. If they were we really got excited about that. Now, people are having, like she said, 5 or 6 at a time at their feeders. So I think they're all the ones that bred up in Winston-Salem and just don't want to go anywhere. But anyway, Bud Yance is sick, so he's not here. But he did send me some comments, and let's see what I've got here. So this is cedar waxwings, and these were taken in Washington State. And he just says, a lot of times, as photographers, you want to get the bird actually doing something, not just sitting there. Sometimes you want that portrait, but a lot of times it's more exciting to see it doing something. And of course, this one is with the berries. He was up there. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. I hope to see that in a couple of weeks, a couple of months. But he had, let's see what he has here. This is endemic to the Big Island of Hawaii. Note the straight lower mandible and the curved upper mandible. It pecks at bark and lichen with the lower mandible like a woodpecker and grasps the prey with the pincher-like upper mandible. So you can see what he's doing there. It's an endemic bird eating an endemic insect larvae in an endemic tree. It's an endemic trifecta. So yeah, I hope I get to see one. Okay. Oh, this is actually a video. Let's see. Oh, yes, no, yes, no. Is it not coming? This is obviously a prairie chicken. You can't quite hear it. I mean, if, maybe they can hear it. Oh, there you go. The clicking is the cameras. And then you got the winds. They're not really that vocal. I remember when I saw them, they were. But... Okay, so this is, let's see, prairie chicken. This is the Kansas Lek. Oh, I have it as, oh, I didn't put it in there. I thought it was Kansas, but it could have been New Mexico. But it's he highly recommends the Kansas Lek Festival in April to see the lesser and greater prairie chickens. Where else can you get up at 3 o'clock in the morning on a bus at 4, drive 2 hours, put up a portable blind in 20-mile-an-hour winds at 20 degrees Fahrenheit, just to see some male chickens danced for the attention of females. It's if you're going to go on what we call these chicken tours, you got to get up early, and you tend to leave late. I mean, go to bed early. Okay, so the marsh wren, as in Ohio, he was up for the he was up at Maggie Marsh. Watched this handsome male weave his nest for several minutes. So he was actually nesting. He then perched on the reed and sang at the top of his lungs, "Ladies, tuxedo, luxury condo available, and I'm open for business." That's what he says. That's his comment for that. Okay, model. This is in Texas. No, yeah, Texas. Okay. This bird probably showed up, I guess, end of beginning of November.
Recent.
Yeah, it's one of the first times. It's only been seen a couple of times in the United States, period. And it's on a private ranch, but you can get access. They have tours going in there. Seen on it's the Santa Margarita Ranch in the Rio Grande Valley. It's the first documented live modeled owl on U.S. soil. All right, and previously a dead one was found along the roadside, but speculation is that it came into the U.S. in a grill of a semi from Mexico. They're predominantly Mexican birds, and further south. So they're people I know, and I think Keith is there now. Keith Cameron, and one of the local birders, is down there looking for this bird. What? Secure our border. Yeah, secure our border. Okay, so what's really exciting about this, and he's got a very long comment on this. Bud started birding about 2 years ago. One of his very first major trips was to Huntington Beach with us in October of 22, if I'm correct. And the year, no, 21, it must be 21. For 22, he just took off. I mean, we hardly ever saw him anyway. But anyway, he made it to 500 in that year. This year, he made it to what was it? What's he got? 566. He is 733. I can't read it. Can't read. So he is sixth. He was sixth in the country. And I want you to know the two top people seem to be at the top all the time. They live in, among other places, Lower Rio Grande, but they are always in the top 10. So this is what he has to say. He birded long and hard in 23 and was pleased to, and this is birds in the, what they call the ABA area, which includes Hawaii, okay? He was pleased to finish sixth in the ABA area, so in the top 10 for the continental United States as well. Okay, so he says, thanks to Judy and Ron and Matt Withrow and Christine and Malia and Janet and all the others who helped me along the way. Finished with a total worldwide 997, which is 600. He's a numbers person. 613. Highlights included a 5-day, 4-night pelagic. That's 5 days on the boat. Out of San Diego, time at Adak Island in Alaska, on the Aleutians off the coast of Alaska, and going to Eastern Egg Rock off of Maine to sit in the blinds watching the Atlantic puffins. Excuse me. He was bitten by a venomous spider in Ecuador. Oops. Where my leg turned into purple from knee to bottom of his foot, and almost stepped on a black-tailed rattler in Madeira Canyon. Who thought birding could be so hazardous? Saw the world's smallest bird, which you'll see later, the bee hummingbird, followed by one of the largest flying birds, the Stellar sea eagle in Maine, all in 1 week. Rarities included first documented Bacall teal in Alaska, first gray gull in Florida, large bird tern in Florida, and cattle tyrant in Corpus Christi. So that was his. I'm getting some water. Yeah. Judy, I knew it. I'm on a cough drop. I think. Thank you. Although it's Christine's turn now, so I can take a break. Take a break.
Okay. This is an anhinga from the Huntington Beach State Park trip that we took in October. I think all of us on that trip got a lot of pictures of this particular bird. It was very posy. Not an unusual bird, but I like the way the water is in the back. It kind of came out pretty artsy, so that's what I like that. Uh-oh, wait, oh, I went too far. In June, I went to Zion with my husband, and this was a green-tailed towhee and having some kind of lunch. And he was pretty cooperative for a photograph as well. Oh, Lord, I did something. Back. Sorry. The next one is going to also be from Zion. Grace's warbler. I had only had very brief looks at this bird on previous Western trips. But there was a day where we avoided the crowds and went in the very northern area of Zion. And I think we saw like 3 people when we were there. But I saw over a dozen of these Grace's warbler. They were everywhere and super cooperative for photographs. There we go. Thanks. So that's Grace. In February, I was in Guatemala. I cheated a little bit. I put 2 pictures in one shot. It's hard to tell on this angle exactly, but on the left, you'll see when it's closed up, it's called the Anna's 88. She left the 88 off. It's called Anna's 88 butterfly. And it literally looks like it has like a jersey number on its wing. It says 88 on its wing. And when it opens up, it has that beautiful coloring. I was with a butterfly guy on this trip, and it's a butterfly he always wanted to see, so he was really excited. And I could see why. It was pretty cool. Also in Guatemala, one of the big reasons people go to Guatemala is to see the horned guan. Very rare bird, not easy to get. It used to be back in the day that you used to have to take some crazy death march, like a whole day to get up a mountain to see this bird. There's actually a second spot. You can see it. That's a little easier. It did require a puddle jumper flight when we first got there, all the way to the Mexican border. This is about 6 miles from the Mexican border. Guatemala is pretty interesting. It has no endemic birds, mostly because the rarer birds are in that Chiapas mountain region that straddles Mexico and Guatemala. So this bird, although rare, can also be seen in Mexico. And that was an interesting, the flight was one of my favorite parts of the whole Guatemala trip. We were just a charter plane for the 8 of us in the group, flying low across Guatemala. So it was just beautiful. The town we stayed in was a hellhole with no electricity, and it was a price to pay to get this bird. And it still was a bit of a hike, but it was worth it because we saw the horned guan. Another great bird for Guatemala is the pink-headed warbler. It's hard to believe this bird is even real, and kind of interesting that they comment on the head being pink, but really the whole bird is pink. It's a raspberry pink, beautiful shades and variations. And it turned out to be a very common bird. We saw this a good part of the trip many times. So that was pretty exciting. It's one of my favorites from the trip. And that's it.
Okay, so John Hanna, who always likes to bring his pictures to us, couldn't make it because he is on a boat in the Antarctic. But he sent me a couple of things. This is the main, I guess the mainland. I don't know, I don't know, it's amazing. But that's obviously a flow. But he got to see the mantled albatross and, of course, humpbacked whales, which are a lot. But what he was really excited about, they took they landed not on the Antarctic, but the Falklands, one of the Falkland Islands, and then took, I guess, some kind of vehicle to several penguin colonies. Oops. So this is the Magellanic, there it is, Magellanic penguin. And the next one is the Gentoo. And they're breeding. And the next one, of course, is the one who's so excited about, was the king penguins. That's a heck of I'd hate to have to count those guys. I guess you'd have to do it. Yeah, I'd hate to have to count. Yeah, if you saw the Christmas counts, doing what we see. Yeah, that's amazing. I like the guy in the front. He's just kind of like, well, I'm here. Are you going to show me what I'm doing here? Just hang around. Okay, so that was quick and dirty. Okay, John?
Okay. My name's John Hillary, and took a trip to New Zealand in November. Have some pictures to show. The Australasian gannet, or sometimes just known as gannet, we were at a colony where they were breeding at Cape Kidnappers on the North Island of New Zealand. This is how they feed their young, which most folks in here probably already knew that. There's mostly fish. They go and gather fish from the ocean and bring it back and regurgitate it when the young are handy. So this one, didn't expect to see this bird in this location. We were, and this is on the South Island in a town inland called Wanaka. We were at the marina. We were bicycling by the marina. We saw these people with binoculars looking at something, and came back the next day, and we got to see pretty much the same thing. The great crested grebe are a lake nesting bird, and they have a place in the what used to be the marina for the city of Wanaka, but the marina gave up some of their space and put in some platforms, and the grebes love it. They come, and there were several pairs there. These were doing courtship dance. That
This is the bird of the year in New Zealand. I don't know if anybody's heard about John Oliver.
So to get it on the microphone, so yeah. There was a vote in New Zealand that this species won as bird of the year, the great crested grebe. Okay, in the Orokonui Eco Sanctuary, also on the South Island in New Zealand, the eco sanctuary, they put up a fence, a lot of work to put up a fence to make it so that mammals mostly can't get through into it. And then they trap out all the animals that were inside there, all the mice and rats, and they have other mammals too. That makes it into an eco sanctuary, and then they maintain that fence and keep it. So this is a large parrot called a kaka, and it lives. They're not endangered. They're fairly numerous in New Zealand and in Australia, I think. But this particular one, that individual had it in for me. We were at the eco sanctuary watching the kakas and feeding and stuff, and then all of a sudden one of them leapt off the feeder and flew straight over my shoulder. And I thought, what did I do? And I didn't know, but like down the road, 5-10 minutes down the road, a bird did the same thing, leapt off the feeder and came straight over my shoulder. And I'm fairly certain it was the same one, although I didn't get photographs the first 2 times. But the third time that he did that, I was ready and got this picture and this picture. That's the same bird. It's fairly large. I'm about 14 inches when it's folded its wings, and the wingspan, 2.5 to 3 feet, something like that. It's pretty big for a parrot.
You should find out what his name is, because he's got fans.
Yeah, he's got. Well, no, and maybe he's known for doing that. I don't know. I didn't investigate it. So wandering albatross, which they don't nest here, but he flew a long way to get here. With his wings locked. They have the way of locking their wings out so that they're not using energy to maintain that posture. Gliding on the ocean. This is above the Pacific, near Kiakura. That's South Island of New Zealand also. But this actually was Diane inspired this photo. She said, get them with the snow caps in the background. And it does make it excellent. Because it's pretty common to, if you can see the mountains on the South Island, they have snow on it, at least in the spring. We were there in November, which is late spring. And we were on a little rental. We went out to do albatross watching. So it was a small boat, yeah, when I took this picture. And was successful. That's it. Judy.
Okay, Bud mentioned the smallest hummingbird you're going to see in a few minutes. He and I went on a trip to Cuba this past, well, it'll be almost a year ago, February, March. Cuba has 26 endemics, or actually 28 endemics. That means that can only be found on that island. And we saw 26 of them. One of the other 2, they're pretty sure is extinct. And the other one, they're not sure yet. They haven't declared it extinct, but nobody's seen him, in quite a while. And if they're still there, they're deep in an area, that same area where they think the ivory-bill woodpecker might be. On this very south end of the island. Is that the south end? Yeah, I guess that's the south end, near Guatemala. Guantanamo. And it's very difficult to get to, very difficult terrain, very difficult to do any research. Cuban government doesn't want anybody to do any research down there. So they don't really know. But we did get to see 26 of the 28. I swear we had half of them the first day. And that's because we happened to have, as one of our guides, the guy who basically is the Roger Tory Peterson for Cuba. I mean, he not only knows, he looks at an osprey and he says, okay, that's such and such a subspecies, and this is a different subspecies. They want to make this one a species. They don't want to. They want to leave this one. I mean, he had us so confused after a while. We didn't know what we were doing. But anyway, I believe all of these are endemics that you're going to see. One of them is, and you'll get that idea because of their names. Okay. Notice I didn't put where they were from, mainly because this is a Black Hawk. We saw this in the Zapata area, in a swamp, big, huge swamp. The trip itself was not only great for birds, but obviously a definite eye opener as far as the hoops and everything we had to go through to get there. You have to sign all kinds of documents and say what you're doing there and so forth and so on. And we were not allowed to stay at regular hotels. We actually stayed in people's homes and houses. And we were fed by local people. And ask me sometime about the food. Unbelievable. So we really got immersed in the culture as well. So it was an amazing. I can't. I could talk quite a long time about that experience, and maybe I will sometime. This is a Cuban toady. There's not supposed to be an A in there. It's supposed to be, pardon? No, it's just T-O-D-Y. There's no A. It's a yeah. I looked at this, I don't know how many times, and I still missed it. But anyway, the toady. There are, I think there's like 15 toadies, and there's a different one on each of the Caribbean islands. You can only find them on the Caribbean islands. So this is the Cuban toady. You guys had one in Belize, though, didn't you? Didn't you have a toady? Toady mott. That's right. Okay. And a toady flycatcher. Cuban woodpecker. Actually pretty common and just a fascinating bird. I've never seen a green woodpecker. It's just a stunning bird. And he's probably a little bit bigger than our red belly. They do have one that looks very similar to our red belly and is also, but bigger. So they grow the woodpeckers. They're pretty big. Of course, the trogons, and again, this is an endemic trogon only found on the island. You can't see it so much here, but their tails are just fluted like this. They've got these curves, whatever. Pardon?
It's the colors of the Cuban flag.
Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. The emerald, Cuban emerald. Not many hummingbirds at all, which surprised me, considering I've been to Costa Rica, I've been to Panama and to Ecuador, and we had lots of hummingbirds. But this is the most common, and also I think the only other one was the rufous-tailed. Okay, what are we going to do? Yeah. And here is the bee hummingbird. This is the smallest hummingbird. It's tough to get an idea of the size of this bird. when you're looking at it in a picture, and even when you're looking at it in your binoculars, because once you get on it, I mean, it looks pretty big if you've magnified it, right? I would say it's about this, it's a little bit bigger than this part of your thumb. You know those carpenter bees? That's about the size. He's pretty small. And when he goes by, it's like seeing the carpenter. Actually, the carpenter bees are slower than this guy. But it's that zip through. Oh, where'd he go? Where'd he go? What's going on? It would take a while to get him, or see him sitting. And of course, we had him at feeders, which was what?
I'm amazed that you had them so close. When I was there, they were doing the dance, so they were all so high up, and it was at the tip top, and we were running.
No, this guy he'd go into the feeders and then eat. And of course, the feeders are only like this big, and he's about half that size. And then he would sit in a couple of branches real close. So it was really nice to get to be able to do that. Pardon? Certainly not as common as the emerald. That bird was everywhere. This one, we every once in a while have one go by us when we were elsewhere, but this was at a place specifically designed to bring in the not only hummers but the other birds as well. It's a feeding station kind of thing. Somebody's backyard. What? I can't remember the name of the garden.
Yeah.
It's in Zapata. Huh? Yeah. It's their backyard. It's kind of like Arizona and Texas where they have the feeders out and you can go and sit. And we sat there for quite a while. What was interesting while we're sitting there, we checked off all our warblers for the year. a lot of our winter, what's here in the spring and the fall and the summer, they wintered down there. So we had, all kinds of warblers. Next person. Oh, I get to be this person too. Let's hope I make it through this. Peggy, who is next, and Martin are both sick. Okay, let's see. In general, my photos are selected because, you want to see the photo, don't you? Are selected because they what is the comment? Are usually often common birds, but they're selected because of their personalities and what they're doing, as I said earlier. Something. Okay, so this is the hermit. Where's the hermit? Oh, it's a hummingbird. Planet. Anybody want to try to say it? Planalto. Okay. I am not can't pronounce very well. If you went on the Panama trip and probably in Belize, did you have the hermits in Belize as well? Okay, you will have them, anybody going to wherever it is you're going. Costa Rica this time, you'll have the hermits. And this is just one of them. They all look pretty much alike. They're big hummingbirds, really big hummingbirds. Yes, and he's gathering nest materials in this case. Okay, so this is the rufous-tailed jacama, and jacama. I leave off this. Okay, so capturing the moment with these two birds was very interesting because I didn't realize the second bird was in the frame until I went back to process. So I call this "Let's Do Lunch." So he never saw the other bird. Just kind of fun. Okay, the indigo, because these are not in the same order I have them. These birds were forced into being critically endangered due to deforestation in the 60s. As of 2018, there were about 350 breeding adults. It was an honor to, so it's still a threatened, endangered species. He calls us kissing cousins. He likes those. Oh, and these are in Brazil. Okay. The Phryginus pygmy owl. He just loves owls. That's what he's got on here. And they are cute. That bird must get around, because I've seen that in several different countries. So it's kind of, it's a neat bird. It's a real tiny owl. Okay, the gray-breasted parakeet. Oh, these are rare birds. And the funny thing about them, not in this case, you don't see that, but one of them pooped on his head. So he really likes that while observing him. And he calls this, yeah, this is gray-breasted. He calls this one, for whatever reason, get a room. But oh, that's because they're actually, no, there's three of them. There's actually three birds. We have Sex in the City here. I didn't realize that the first time. But yeah, they were at it, to say the least. That's called the cloaca kiss. And this was taken in Alaska, and he just loves this bird. I mean, look at that bird. It's kind of like, it says, there's always something interesting about a nesting bird. The almost defiant look of, I'm going to protect my young, even though the photo was from 50 yards away. And it's a special moment. This was actually taken in Alaska. Okay, now Peggy didn't give me anything on her, but they were all taken, Peggy and obviously Martin are married. And they did the trip to Brazil back in October. This is another bird. When I saw that, she said, well, that couldn't have been taken in Brazil, but they are. They're very common in South America, the burrowing owls. So they're a lot rarer here than they are down there, which I thought was interesting. This is one of their hummingbirds. This is one of their emeralds, glittering bellied. A lot of the hummingbirds are green and whatever. Toucanets, the Gould's toucanet. I love toucanets. They're fun. It's not the same as the toucan, but it's close. The redneck tanager, he's nice. We get excited when I see our two tanagers, and if we get the Western or one of the other ones show up, we get really excited. In most of these countries, there's 2 or 3 dozen tanagers easily. I think we had 40 in Ecuador, and that was only half of them. This is a puff bird, spotted puff bird. And then the swallowtail hummingbird. I'm not sure how big that is, but the tail is almost longer than the bird itself. Okay, Richard, your turn. Richard. That's the one.
I'm actually not sure what I'm going to see. I sent a little album on Flickr of 24 images to Judy and said, pick out some. So I don't know which ones we're going to see.
Oh boy.
I just did.
I tried again. Some reasons.
All right. Okay, we had the chance to go to Southern Africa in April this year. We had been to East Africa, Tanzania, and Kenya in 2019, and this time we went to South Africa, Botswana, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. This was in Botswana, near the Okavango Delta, and this is a bataleur. Apparently, a lot of the birds were named for French ornithologists, or the French ornithologists were able to name them. So the bataleur, and I liked it because he's still got one toenail on the diving board. We saw a lot of different types of bee eaters. This is the swallowtail bee eater. And this was also in Botswana. And the Varro's eagle owl, again, another French ornithologist. This is the largest owl in Africa. And I love his pink eyelids. He's got really cool eyelids. And he stands real tall. He's probably, I'm guessing, about 2.5 feet tall. Probably bigger than a great horned owl. This was on our Belize trip. The royal flycatcher, actually, I think Steve was the one that kind of spotted this bird. And I wish he had the royal crown up, but I thought it was still a pretty nice shot. And you were talking about doing something. This giant kingfisher, and he's a very large kingfisher, has a crawfish in his mouth. So he's had a pretty good meal. This was in Zambia at Kafue National Park. Oops, come on. And on the Belize trip, when we went to, I know that John and y'all guys went to several different archaeological sites. We went to one, what was the name of it? Lamanai. And so anyway, there was a bunch of these honey creepers that were playing around kind of at the base of the steps, and obviously a red-legged honey creeper. Oops, Steve.
Go back. I think we hit, well, no, it was one part of one, don't have anything from.
Mexico. Richard showed you. So I've been pushing.
Oh, he said it doesn't always work. Oh, there. Okay, this is my little video on my cell phone.
Listen closely for the sandhills. Or see if we can pick out the sandhills.
You can hear the sandhills. Okay, we got up real early one morning in New Mexico and went to go see the snow geese and the sandhill cranes. And this was just a marvelous moment. The sun was coming up and thousands of these snow geese were flying around and calling. And I thought you might enjoy seeing it.
What month of the year?
January.
Also in New Mexico, at the Botanical Garden Albuquerque, there's some very tame wood ducks. Usually don't get that close to a wood duck. Oh, yes, the famous little gull. Last month. This was on pelagic Brian Patterson's Stormy Petrel 2 in last February. And the gannets were flying by at eye level on the boat. It's just amazing to see. That was this summer out at the Outer Banks. A white rump sandpiper was hanging around this little puddle. It's right where you go into the fishing center. There's a puddle by the road going in. It was hanging around that puddle at sunset one evening. And we usually don't pay too much attention to these birds, but that starling was making a nest in an old red-bellied woodpecker hole in a palmetto cabbage palm in Florida. And it sat on that branch. It was just so proud of itself. Okay, that's it. This one, if you want.
First of all, I want to wish everybody a happy new year. I'm not ill. I'm trying to limit my exposure today because I'm leaving the country tomorrow. But I wanted to come and say hi to everybody, and it gives me an opportunity to add my congratulations to Taylor. I knew he was going to get that bird. I've had the good fortune to be invited to Curacao by my little sister and brother-in-law. And I've gone last 2 winters, and I just have a half dozen pictures from last February in Curacao. I would just go out early in the morning from their condo and just walk and see what I could come across. There's a pretty healthy population of American flamingos in Curacao. They spend most of their time in the kind of brackish, shallow salt pans there, filtering the water for small crustaceans and other creatures that they munch on. Very interesting, awkward, but beautiful birds. I sort of have a fondness for raptors, and raptors with personality. Kestrels are kind of up there in terms of having big personalities and little bird. This kestrel had probably unceremoniously beheaded a lizard which it had in its talons. The brown-throated parakeets were quite common there, very raucous, like a lot of parrots and parakeets. Not that difficult to shoot when they're perching, but they zoom when they're flying, and there's a lot of deletes for everyone that's a keeper. This crested caracara with personality, he actually let me get quite close to him and would take off, fly around a little bit, come back down on another cactus, and do it all over again.
Did you know they saw one in Vermont? That one ended up in Vermont after a storm. It was
very cool.
There were pictures online. It was hilarious.
Yeah, very cool.
I know.
You never know.
No, you don't. I think that's a great job.
There are 2 main types of hummingbirds in Curacao, I believe. There's blue-tailed emeralds and ruby topaz hummingbirds, of which this, I believe, is a female or immature. The male is a lot gaudier with a kind of a bright red head, among other things. And finally, just a different twist on Betty, a yellow oriole instead of a Baltimore oriole with a little insect, I believe, of some sort in its beak. Happy New Year, everybody.
If I use this arrow, that could be yours, right?
So this is a pretty common bird up in the Westchester Lagoon up in Alaska, but it was just really, really vibrant and probably one of the prettier birds I saw all year. This guy was also up in Alaska, and it's the closest encounter I've had with an American dipper. And if you look really closely, this is an overachieving dipper because it has not only a bug in its beak, it has a small fish as well. And this particular dipper, there was a bridge probably about 20 feet to the left, and it had a nest up under the bridge, and it was working this little stream down by its feet, and probably did this 30 times, getting stuff out of the stream and taking it to its young. This is from up near the Exit Glacier in Alaska, and you just can't resist a photo of a tufted puffin. are just beautiful. And this was up in no, way out there on the Teller Road. And this willow ptarmigan, it is a poser. I had some shots of it flying, but I really liked the fact that you got a chance to see what this kind of common bird up there is all about.
It's in an intermediate plumage. It's going from, it's probably gonna get a little browner and then it'll get all white again.
Yeah, there are some programs on the National Geographic Channel that, I don't know if it's reality TV or documentary TV, but they follow people up in Alaska who are homesteaders, and they've been shooting a lot of these to eat them. So, yeah. So this is over in France, and this is the greater flamingo, and just a one tall bird. And the pictures really don't do them justice, because that pink color coming off their rear flank there is just really something to see in the sunlight. And this was probably the most exotic bird we saw when we were in France. And this is a spotted thickney. These birds generally are not active during the daytime. They were hanging out in a field when they're not flying and they're hunkered down. They're the same color as the dirt in the field. And so thank you to Steve Coggin for walking through the field and making them take flight so I could get this photo. That's it.
If you have any other questions for the folks that took the pictures, we still have some time before we have to clean up. We thank you for coming. And again, thank you for all the great food.